Alright guys, welcome back to Tardis Talk, where we run down the latest episode of Doctor Who, give our theories, thoughts and opinions, and point out a few Easter eggs along the way. I'm your host Smack Talks, and I'm joined by the Time Lady known as Miss Revolution, as we get set to talk Series 10, Episode 5, Oxygen. This week, seeing the Doctor and Bill travel to outer space to answer a space station distress call following the station's spacesuits being ordered to disable its organic components, aka the human inside it. So, Elle, let's talk first thoughts. What did you make of Oxygen?
Well, I don't know about you, but I was left kind of breathless.
Ooh, are you? I couldn't live without it, to be honest.
No, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was very simple in parts, and even from like the design look, it looked very much kind of like 70s idea of space. It wasn't too clean and crisp. It was kind of very like, you could say, garage kind of grungy look, and it wasn't clean and things, which I really liked, and it kind of added to the atmosphere that not everything was right, and you just had this imposing threat of like these space zombies. And even like the soundtrack, I thought the soundtrack was really on point and it was really good and that added to the atmosphere. But all around, I thought everything was on point this week.
I totally agree with you. The first time I watched it, bear in mind I got interrupted halfway through it, so it spoiled a little bit. But when I watched it back, I found it to be so much better the second time, where I was able to sit through and really get sort of sucked right into it. So I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't have said this when I first watched it, but now that I've gone back and watched it again, I think it's possibly my favourite episode so far this season. Is it up there for you?
It's definitely between Thin Ice and this one. I think both of them are really good. You had all the character elements like with Bill and the Doctor, and then you even had like Nardole this week, and everything. For all it was very simple, there was like scenes of complex and things, and you could easily read a lot into a few things. So for me, always looking for like theories and mysteries, I loved it, and just kind of getting to see how far Bill and the Doctor have come already, and what Nardole adds to the mixture and things like that. And like I said, I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it did. It had bits of really everything that you really wanted, and I think that was why I really liked it watching it back. Because, like you've mentioned, the aesthetic of it, the fact that it wasn't this like futuristic space station where it was all clean, a bit like when we got Smile. That looked really clean, and to me, that kind of took away from sort of the atmosphere. Where this, being that it was kind of like a horror feel, and I think the way that was set with that sort of look, it kind of added to it. I don't think it would have had that same feel if it was like a bright white futuristic space station. So I think having that sort of look, and then the zombie type courses and these suits walking around, to me it felt very sort of alien, like a zombie film. So I really got into that, and like you mentioned, taking Nardole along for the ride. Even though I said the Christmas special, I don't think I'm going to like Matt Lucas in this. I actually really did like him in this episode again, and I think I've said that with everyone that he's sort of predominantly been in. He just seems to add like quite a lot to it, like a little bit of comedy, and it really goes really well with the Doctor. I love the banter between the two of them, and I'm kind of hoping we do get a little bit more of him actually coming in, because I think he is actually sticking around for this second half of the season, because we're going to go back and get a little bit more on his character and just why the Doctor's actually taking him around with him. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I want to know a little bit more about Nardole himself. We'll talk first thoughts. We're going to talk a little bit more about the suits now. So what did you make of these as kind of an enemy, an alien? It was just an AI that'd been ordered, so it wasn't technically a species or anything like that. But did you find them scary? What did you think of the whole technology taking over?
I kind of liked even how the suits like complex. You kind of had this like Velma who, not necessarily comedy, but there was also that like kind of element where she was like, "Shall I upgrade your suit so you can run away faster and things?" But then at the same time, you've got this kind of like stalker thing, slow zombie following you around and never really being safe. It didn't, no matter where they went, they were always kind of in danger, even in the room where they thought they were safe. Like they managed to like get this new intel and like break into the room and things, so they were never really safe. And even though they were walking a bit slow, and it kind of had that Cyberman feel, even like the sound of it was quite a lot similar. And it was almost this impending doom all the time. Just because you couldn't see them, it didn't mean they weren't there. And like I said, like the soundtrack for me added even that to it. You were never really safe, and like you say, it reminded us a lot of like Alien and things.
Yeah, it did. I think, to me, I found them really terrifying. Like, I think the one thing I was trying to process is when you look at them, you kind of think, it's a zombie, it's zombies coming towards us. So every time I looked at them, I seen a zombie, but then in my head I was trying to process, well, it's not really like the person inside it, it's the actual suit. So to me, that was kind of terrifying because these suits are what they actually need to survive. So the point where they actually have to put these on, if I was Bill, I'd be like, well, these suits are trying to kill her, and now you want us to actually put one on? What if it does kill us? So I kind of got that kind of terrifying moment that Bill was going through. So I found that to be quite a cool thing. And the whole thought of the AI going rogue itself and actually turning on them. We know that kind of they said maybe it was like a hacker that programmed them to do that. But the whole idea of it becoming self-aware, a bit like the Vardy in one of the previous episodes, that to me was kind of chilling. And then with you mentioning the Cybermen, I know you said it kind of sounded like that when they were chunking around, but to me, I also kind of picked up on the fact that every time they went and passed on that message, it seemed very Cyberman-like in the fact that they reached out and then you seen like the sort of lightning kind of going past. And to me, like you said, it felt very Cybermen.
I kind of wouldn't even mind if this was like another origin of a different species of Cyberman. Like it didn't mean to come about that way, but that's what's kind of come to pass and things. And like you said, it kind of did have that Vardy feel. Now come to think of it, like the suits were never intended to do what they've done.
Yeah.
But because of like the employees and what they've got in place, they've kind of turned into this like merciless murder and things. And even that sort of complex side to it again was really cool. For all it was similar, it looked different enough, and it was a different kind of threat. And I know like I wasn't keen on the Vardy and the emoji bots, but this was kind of like the right way to do it. That had an imposing look. It didn't need to be fast, and you had like the confined spaces and things, and just everything really added up for me.
It did. There was so much to it. There was a lot, I think, that they could have also done with it that we didn't really get, because there was the bit where Bill is going to run, and I think you've just mentioned it, where it says, would you like help with that? The suits could actually run, but we never actually seen that in the episode. We just got these sort of slow moving zombies. So I think they could have even done the thing where, the suits helped them and they ran towards them. Even that would be terrifying. So all in all, I think the suits, bear in mind it's just a suit, I thought it would be like quite a terrifying threat, and I actually really liked it as a sort of, I don't know what to call it, an enemy, whatever it is, AI. I thought it was really cool. So that's our thoughts on the suits. Let's move on and talk about one of this week's biggest talking points. As following Bill's suit malfunctioning and removing a helmet, the Doctor sacrificed himself to give Bill his helmet and walk out of safety, but as a consequence we found out that the Doctor was left blind as a result of oxygen deprivation, which, whilst we thought he was going to be okay, the episode ended with a huge cliffhanger that he's still blind. So Elle, I apologise for this pun, but did you see it coming?
It's been quite a funny episode. I totally didn't see it coming. I think that's why I liked it more. Like, I felt like a lot of this episode was, for the last few weeks at least, the Doctor's kind of brought his instruments back, like the psychic paper and the sonic screwdrivers kind of had a bit more use. And even like the Tardis, you've had this like all these old features coming back up, like the scanner and things. And this episode kind of took everything away from him. He didn't have the TARDIS, the sonic screwdriver was broken, and then to like lose his sight, it was like he was left with nothing. And I kind of hope to drag it out a little.
I kind of hope they do as well.
And I know like next week in the preview we're going to see, like, I didn't like the sonic sunglasses, but I'm kind of intrigued to see how they're going to work, and who knows, maybe I like them more, and I kind of wouldn't mind even seeing those fail on him and having to resort to kind of like primitive ways and having to rely a bit more on Nardole and Bill and whatnot.
Well, that's the thing. Like you, I absolutely hated them damn sunglasses. But I guess now he does have a legitimate reason to actually wear them. So I'll forgo it this time. I'll give them a second chance. But I didn't see it coming at all. I apologise for yet another pun. But I foolishly took the Doctor's word that he could see again, only to find myself shocked and then intrigued at the revelation that, he actually can it. So how is he going to go about fixing this problem and actually going about solving anything that actually comes up against him? So I'm looking forward to seeing what they actually do with this. But I guess what I'm kind of thinking is, I don't think this is going to be like, you know how we had Before the Flood, and it ended with the Doctor's ghost appearing? And then the week after, within the first 5 minutes, that had kind of been resolved and it was all back to normal. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case with this one. I think this is going to kind of string out a little bit longer and we're going to actually see him blind for, I would say, this entire next episode, just to see how he goes on. Because he has got the sonic shades, so it's not like, he kind tell what's going on. That's obviously going to help him. But I see this being more of a problem, which is something that we haven't really seen in Doctor Who for a long time. Because usually whenever he comes up with some big threat like this, it tends to get resolved pretty quickly. But to me, I think they're going to string this one out and actually show it to be, Capaldi's Doctor, his body's failing him. And maybe that's what's going to lead into this regeneration that we're seeing in the trailer for the series. So I think he's going to maybe get to a point where this happens, he goes blind, and then he finds himself struggling, and maybe he has to start off his own regeneration to sort of heal himself with that regeneration energy. And then ultimately, that then leads into his regeneration, whether that be sort of at the Christmas special or not. He's going to kind of slow that down like we've seen in the past. So we've sort of healing himself and putting that off for a little bit later.
I definitely wouldn't mind kind of seeing that lead into the regeneration and the Doctor almost becoming kind of like desperate, because the Doctor's always been like this stubborn hero and it's always him saving everyone, whereas he's going to kind of have to like pedal it back a little and kind of let everyone else do the work for him while trying not to be like too vulnerable and trying to just basically do what the Doctor does, save the day and leave. But he's now going to have to, like you say, he's going to have to rely on things like the sonic sunglasses and Nadol, and it'll be interesting to see if his methods change, because he's always doing the right thing, but obviously because he's blind, something else is going to come into play, and it kind of makes you wonder, will he see things differently? Will he see his friends like he has done before? And like in the very start of the episode, he talks about how people take things for granted and what they see in space and things, and the Doctor always has. He's always just been able to turn up, see things and leave and never really look back, whereas now he's going to have to take everything with a bit more heart and hopefully not take things for granted.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be really hard for him because, like you've just said, it's always the Doctor that's kind of the one telling people what to do and things. Whereas now, the shoe's kind of on the other foot, and it's like he's going to have to take a back seat and rely on Bill, Nardole, and these other people actually do things for him. And like we see in the episode, Nardole says, he doesn't like people trying to help him. So it's going to be interesting to see how his Doctor sort of progresses with that. I can see him getting quite annoyed in the next episode when people try to help, and he wants to try and do things himself. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plans out. But like I've said to you, I think this is going to be an ongoing thing, and it might even go past this next episode, because I think it's sort of like a 3-part series over the next 3 episodes. So really, they could string it out for the first 2 and then have him resolve his sight in the 3rd episode.
I think going into the next episode as well, because I'd looked at the synopsis weeks and weeks ago, and to me the episode sounded cool, and it was kind of like, oh, well, the Doctor's going to read this book and everyone who reads it dies. But now kind of adding this whole new twist on it where the Doctor's blind and it'll almost be like a Brill situation. It adds this whole new like diversity to things, and it's definitely something we've never seen before. Fair enough, we've had someone who's been deaf and things, and even that was like a huge moment. So kind of having this other twist on Doctor Who where the Doctor can't see, it'll be strange, but I kind of want to see just how much it affects him. Like I say, if he'll almost not necessarily become less Doctor-like, but just how desperate it'll become, and kind of see where his moral compass goes.
Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait for next week. I would go as far as saying it is must-see TV. So there we go. Before we get to Easter eggs and a few other bits, we're going to go back to the main story of the episode, because we're going to talk the resolution. The resolution seeing the Doctor reveal that it wasn't actually a hacker that sent the command to the suits to kill the crew after all. Instead, it was actually the suits that run the company who decided that the crew were no longer profitable as they'd become inefficient, with the company then opting to remove them and save oxygen for the replacements. So what did you make of the ending? Were you happy with how it played out, or were you expecting something different behind it?
I will say, for all I said, the episode was really basic and things, and it wasn't too much. The explanation kind of went a little bit over my head at first.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until I watched it back like I understood it a lot more. I think some of the terms they used and things, I think especially for little ones, I think it probably would have been a bit too much.
Mhm.
But I loved how it was almost like the whole value of life, and we've seen it throughout the series so far with like Thin Ice and things, and even Smile, where the value of life kind of comes into question, and that you can't put a price on life and things like that. So it was good to kind of see that come back, yet on a totally different scale, and the fact that you can't put a price on life and oxygen and things that you need to survive. So I definitely loved it, and I love how, like you said before, it was almost like that Cyberman kind of like infection, and that was passed on to kind of carry the message.
Yeah. No, I agree with that as well. It went a little bit over my head the first time when I was watching it, because at first I thought he was trying to say it was the actual AI that, again, like the Vardy, had become self-aware, and that was charging for the oxygen, which didn't make a lot of sense. But then when I rewatched it and I kind of took it all in, it was like, yes, so there's actually the suits of the company, the actual leaders, and they're the ones that's actually declaring that the crew is expendable. So when I watched it back and I kind of took it all in, I think that was one of the reasons why I liked it a lot more. So I actually liked that. I liked the whole reason behind it, and I could actually see that actually being the case. And I'm sure there is like a lot of companies out there that would actually devalue their employees and get rid of them and bring in someone else. Maybe they wouldn't kill them. I think that would probably go against human rights. But I could definitely see that as being like a willing reason for this story. So I was happy with that. One thing that I didn't quite get was the end of the episode, because usually in the past, if something like this would have happened, then I would expect the Doctor to actually go off and sort of see the people behind this, set them straight, where that didn't really happen in this episode. Instead, we'll have the Doctor dropping off the remaining crew to go and file a complaint. So I was kind of expecting like a Matt Smith or a David Tennant Doctor to actually go to the source of the problem and deal with it. But then again, I guess if the Doctor's kind of blind, he's kind of got a few other things on his mind. Do you expect him to go off and sort of see who was behind this, or?
In one sense, like, I wasn't surprised. It kind of reminds me of the whole Rebel Flesh thing, where he kind of left the employees to deal with that themselves instead of sticking in. But I think because he was blind, I think that kind of added a lot more into it. He didn't want anyone to know he was blind, and maybe if he had gone and tried to resolve it, someone would have picked up on it and things. So I think it was a lot more of him kind of being a bit more vain and not wanting anyone to see him being vulnerable and things, as opposed to doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree with that. I think that does make a lot of sense. He's obviously got a lot of things that he now has to deal with. So maybe drop them off, let them file a complaint, see how that goes, and he can maybe revisit it at another time when he can actually see what's in front of him. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk one final topic before we actually go on to Easter eggs this week. So we're going to talk about Nardole. First of all, before we get into what happened in the episode, what are you making of Nardole as a character? Because I talked about him a little bit before. What's your thoughts on him?
See, like you, I wasn't really fussed on him at Christmas, and I think his comedy was a bit too over the top. But we've got to see like this whole completely different side of Nardole, and I'd even go to say like I enjoy him sometimes a bit more than the Doctor. I think he's kind of got this like Matt Smith comedy side to him, and then you've got the Doctor to do the seriousness. But then at the same time, like you'll have Nardole come in and be really serious at some points, and it sounds really drastic, but it kind of makes me wish we'd kind of got to see Nardole as maybe the Doctor, having that sort of comedy, yet this whole seriousness side, which he does so well. And I think there's definitely a dark undertone with Nardole. He touched on that he would murder someone for a profitable reason and things, and there's always that kind of like tone with Nardole where you don't know if he's trying to be funny or if he's being serious. And I definitely think there's something a lot darker there that we're not seeing just yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there is definitely something behind it that is maybe a little bit darker. But in terms of comedy, I actually really like it. I think it works really well when you've got Capaldi's more serious Doctor. And there was a line in the episode, I can't remember who said it, but it was about the suits getting tired of carrying pesky humans around. And the Doctor then chimes in with, yeah, I kind of know that feeling, and he looks over at Nardole. So I like the comedy and the banter between the two of them. But like you said, the fact that you don't know if some of the things that he's saying, if he is joking or if he's serious, the thing that I want to point out is a line that he said this week. Because he said, I haven't seen my true face in years, swapped it for this one on the run. So I wanted to kind of know what you make of this. Do you think there is something to this? Did he have a different face? Because when we first met Nardole in the Christmas episode, he actually had his head used by King Hydroflax. So I kind of took it that Nardole originally was human, and then this robot has sort of taken his head and used it. I don't know now if that is the case, because the things that he said in this episode about sort of the AI and things, it kind of said to me that maybe he has been an android, a robot, and he wasn't actually human after all. But then we also have him wearing this suit, and I'm like, well, why does he need a suit with his oxygen? If he is an android, why is he breathing air? So there's a lot of things with Nardole that don't really make a lot of sense for me. So what do you make on it? Do you think there's something else on this? So we're going to see, a different face when we do get his backstory? Could there be something that we've seen maybe in the series before, and it turns out that we have seen his face somewhere else? Or is this just, as he said, him not being serious, and this is just a throwaway line?
I do think this is kind of one of the major flaws with Nardole. I think because we've never had it pointed out what did happen in the pilot. We had him I think he opened the door and a nut fell out of his arm and things, and you think, all right, he's an android, but like you say, he went on to wear the helmet and things. It's well, surely if he is an android, why would he need the helmet? And even the line about him having a different head, it almost sounds like he's regenerated or something, whereas in the Christmas episode from a few years back, we know that his head was just on another body and things. And I definitely think it needs explaining, because it's this huge plot hole. Fair enough, it's not going to add a great deal to it, but I think it just needs resolving, because we don't really know where we stand with Nardole on that front. Is it just that he's kind of come off King Hydroflax's body and things, and the doctors put him on this new AI? But I don't know, it's really confusing, and it does bug me at times, but then I kind of just get lost in Nardole himself.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. I'm sure we will get kind of a bit of resolution and some of the reason behind this, but what I'm going to say is, why isn't the Doctor really annoyed with him? Even more so than he was in the episode, because when you think about it, if he is a robot and he doesn't need to breathe, why didn't he just give Bill his helmet?
Yeah, it's really confusing, and I kind of don't even know where Nardole and the Doctor stand. Is what type of relationship? Is it at 1 second you've got them kind of having this bromance, and then another it's kind of employer and tutor and things?
It is. It's a strange kind of dynamic between them. So I'm liking it, but as you've mentioned, as I've just said, it's all a little bit strange, because we don't actually know a lot about Nardole. So I'm looking forward to that episode that we'll actually get, where it does explain what's going on. But until then, we shall have to wait. One thing we do have to wait for, but not too long, is next week we're going to get a final answer on who is actually in the vault. So before we see that next week, I want to ask you a question. What's your final prediction? Who is inside this vault?
See, I'm kind of going to shake things up. I know for a few weeks I've kind of said I think it'll be Missy, but I'd say from all the promotion we're getting for the next episode, I think Missy's probably been a red herring all along. And it's kind of left field, but I kind of think we might see Bill in the vault.
Bill?
There's been a lot of underlining things and throwaway comments that have come through quite a few episodes, and I've kind of left them at the back of my head. In the pilot, you have them refer to Bill as friend, and she somehow gets through their basement to look at the vault and things, and it's kind of well, that's a bit suspicious. And then there's been a few things I can't fully put it into words, but even the fact that the Doctor won't even tell Bill that he's blind, surely Bill's supposed to be some sort of friend, but Nardole points out that he's not letting his enemy see him with some sort of weakness. So does that mean Bill isn't necessarily his friend? Is it someone the Doctor's cautious about? Does he know what Bill is? Because we don't really know that much about Bill. We just know that her mother's died. We don't know anything about that. We don't even know who her father is. Could that be the Master or something? I know these are huge theories and totally out of left field, but I think there's definitely something there with Bill. There was, even in this week's episode, there was a few kind of looks and nods from Bill when she saw dead bodies and she's spoken about death and things. I definitely think there's something there that she's not telling us just yet, and even I think the Doctor knows something's not right. So I kind of wouldn't be surprised if the vault opens and it's Bill, and it's going to be a bit like, what the hell?
Yeah, that would be my expression. What the hell? I thought you were going to say a River Song because the Next Time trailer also flashed a certain diary. Have you given up on that thought?
Oh, don't get me wrong. When I seen the diary, I completely lost it, but I'm holding out on River Song. I think she might turn up, but yeah.
Not in the vault. Well, I don't know now. I still think last week was kind of the big clue that it isn't necessarily someone good because of the way that they reacted with that piano. I don't want to say Missy because while that was the first thought, she's in the preview for next week. So I think that'd be strange to open it and show her when she's actually in the preview and we're kind of expecting to see her in the episode. So I'm going to go with John Sims Master. I think he's inside there.
See, this is crazy because I don't even know fully where I've thought of it and things. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if the vault opens and Bill's like, Dad?
What? Bill's dad is the Master, or?
Yeah, like I know it's completely left field and things, but I definitely think we're going to get some sort of connection where Bill knows something that...
So she recognises who's in the vault.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be clean cut enough that it's the Master and the Doctor's been helping him for a while. I think there's going to be some sort of repercussion if it is the Master, that it's not so clean cutting. There's some sort of connection.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe we could see the cliffhanger next week be the vault opening and Bill's shocked face, and then she goes, "It's you."
And he goes, "I am your father."
Yeah, it could go on Star Wars. So I think maybe that'd be quite cool if we have Bill actually recognise who's in there, and then it kind of leaves you on that cliffhanger, not just who's in there, but how does Bill know this person that's in there? So that's a little bit speculation. We don't know that that's anything to do with what's going to happen, but it is always fun to think about it. So finally, let's talk Easter eggs, as there were a few in this episode. I didn't pick up on too many, but I'm sure you noticed this one. The very start of the episode, we had it open up with space, the final frontier, in a Star Trek quote. Then we had batteries on the spacesuits in the beginning of the episode, which looked a lot like the ones worn in Silence in the Library. So I'm sure you picked up on that, been looking at all these river references. And then finally we had a reference to the TARDIS's fluid link, which Nodal says that he couldn't leave without them, referencing the first Doctor who lied to Susan, Ian and Barbara when he told them they were empty so that he could explore the Dalek City. So there you go, there's a few little Easter eggs, but let us know if you spotted any more in the comments. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of TARDIS Talk, but make sure to get involved and let us know your thoughts on the episode, as well as your theories for this season and who's in that vault in the comments, as well as following us on Twitter at TARDIS_Talk for live reactions, tweet-alongs, and more Doctor Who goodness. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, but until next time.
See you soon.